There is a moment, somewhere in the middle of the ocean, when a sea turtle stops. It has been swimming for 20 years. It has crossed thousands of miles of open water with no map, no compass, no landmark in sight. And then, somehow, it turns and begins heading back to the exact beach where it hatched. Not a beach like it, not a nearby coastline, the exact same strip of sand. And it will find it. This is not a coincidence, and it is not instinct in the simple way people usually mean that word. Something far deeper is happening inside these animals, something that took scientists decades to even begin to understand. And the more they looked, the more they realized this behavior is not limited to sea turtles. Salmon do it, albatrosses do it, wolves, bears, elephants, and certain species of bats all do it. They leave, sometimes for years, and then they come back. The question scientists kept asking was not just how they find their way back. The real question was why. Why would any animal expend that much energy, cross that much distance, face that much danger just to return to a single place? The answer, it turns out, has everything to do with how memory, survival, and identity are wired into the animal brain. And once you understand it, the behavior stops looking strange and starts looking almost inevitable. Let's start with salmon, because their story is one of the most dramatic in the animal kingdom. A salmon is born in a cold, freshwater stream, usually high in the mountains. It spends the first months of its life learning that stream, the temperature, the minerals dissolved in the water, the smell of the riverbed sediment. Then it leaves, migrating down to the ocean where it will spend years growing and feeding. But every day it is out there in the open sea, its brain is holding on to something, a chemical signature, a smell so specific that no two rivers on Earth share it exactly. When the salmon is ready to spawn, that memory activates like an alarm. It stops eating, it stops caring about predators, it begins moving toward a smell it has not encountered in years. Scientists have confirmed that salmon can detect their home river from miles offshore, using olfactory receptors so sensitive they can pick up a single molecule of home river water in an ocean of salt. They are quite literally following a scent trail through the sea. But here is where it gets stranger. Some salmon rivers have been chemically altered by pollution or dams, and the salmon still come back. They find a river that no longer smells quite right, and they pause, confused, circling. But they do not go to a different river. They wait, they search, they return to the same coordinates. Which means smell is only part of the navigation system. The other part is something scientists call a magnetic map. Every animal on this list, sea turtles, salmon, migratory birds, has a structure in its brain or body that detects the Earth's magnetic field. Sea turtles, in particular, can read the unique magnetic signature of any location on Earth the same way you might read GPS coordinates. A turtle hatched on a beach in Costa Rica imprints that magnetic signature of that exact location before it ever enters the water. 20 years later, it reads that signature again, and it comes home. This is not a rough approximation. Researchers have tracked turtles returning within meters of their original nest site. Meters after 2 decades in the open ocean. The precision is almost unsettling when you think about it. But the magnetic map explains the how. It still doesn't fully explain the why. Why does it matter so much where an animal was born? The answer is buried in something biologists call natal habitat preference induction. The idea is simple but profound. The place where an animal survives the earliest moments is by definition a place that works. The water temperature worked, the food supply worked, the predator density was survivable. Every environmental condition that allowed a young animal to reach adulthood is encoded in that first location. So when it's time to reproduce, returning there is not just familiar, it's statistically the safest bet on the planet. The animal is not being sentimental, it's being ruthlessly logical.
It's saying, in the only language evolution understands, this place worked before, it will work again. And this logic is so powerful that it overrides almost everything else. Salmon stop eating and deteriorate physically during their return migration. Some lose half their body weight. Sea turtles navigate hurricane-force currents in shark-dense shallows. Arctic terns fly from the Antarctic to the Arctic and back over 70,000 kilometers every single year, returning to the same nesting colony each time. The cost is enormous. The commitment is absolute. Now here's something that tends to surprise people when they first hear it. This same pull exists in mammals, including some of the most intelligent ones. Elephants, for example, return to the same regions their mothers led them to as calves, not because they smell a river or read a magnetic field, but because they remember. Elephant memory is well documented, but what is less commonly discussed is that this memory has a geographic dimension. A matriarch elephant holds a mental map of her entire home range, including waterholes, salt licks, and safe corridors that she visited decades ago. When drought comes, she leads her family back to places she has not visited in 20 or 30 years, and they are still there. She is not guessing, she is remembering. And the calves that travel with her are being imprinted with the same map. They are learning, without knowing they're learning, which places are safe, which routes hold water, which hills shelter from wind. When those calves grow up and eventually lead their own families, they will return to those same places, not because they were told to, because those places are written into them. This is perhaps the deepest form of the return instinct. It is not chemical, it is not magnetic. It is memory passed through generations, one animal showing another where home is. Wolves do something similar. A wolf pack's territory is learned, not inherited. Young wolves follow older wolf pack members for years before they understand the full shape of their range. When dispersing wolves leave to form their own packs, they often establish territories that overlap with the edges of the territory where they were raised. They go far enough to be independent, but not so far that the landscape becomes unreadable. They take the mental map they built as pups and draw a new boundary just outside it. It's a kind of expansion that still keeps them connected to the place that made them. There is a pattern in all of this that runs across every species, whether they're navigating by smell, by magnetic field, or by memory. The birthplace is not just a location, it's a reference point, a baseline, a definition of what normal is supposed to feel like. And when the time comes to do the most important thing an animal will ever do, reproduce, survive, raise young, that reference point becomes a gravitational force. Some researchers believe this instinct may be even older than we realize. The neural structures that handle spatial memory in fish, reptiles, birds, and mammals all have variations of the same ancient architecture. The hippocampus, the part of your brain that builds and stores maps of space, exists in some form in every vertebrate on Earth, which means the pull toward the place of origin may be one of the oldest programs in animal neurology. Not a quirk, not a specialization, a foundation. You carry a version of this too. Studies on human migration patterns show that people, even when they move far from home, have a statistical tendency to return to the region of their birth when they age, when they start families, or when life becomes uncertain. The pull is quieter in you than in a salmon. It doesn't override eating or rational thought, but it is there. Some part of you, the oldest part, still knows where it started, and sometimes, without knowing why, you feel it pulling. Maybe that's not so strange after all. Maybe that's just what it means to be an animal that remembers.